It's time to talk about the Buffalo Bills, a very interesting team to talk about from a lot of their positions. Quick PSA, we are recording this on June 27th. So whenever you're listening to this, keep that in mind. If something's happened, that's why I brought that up. And we will do kind of a recap at the end of the training camp close to fantasy draft season. And again, join our Discord. Links in the description on how to do that. Get in there and we'll answer whatever questions you have. But hopefully put together some leagues if we get anyone to join us. And we're talking about the Bills. We got Josh Allen, of course, leading the Bills. You see his numbers there: 2021, QB1; 2022, QB2; 2023, QB1. I believe 2020 he was also QB1. So three of the last 4 seasons he's been QB1, has not fallen below 24 points per game, which again, if you listen to my last video talking about Lamar, when you start getting to 22, 23, 24 points per game in 4 point per passing touchdown, you're a difference maker at the position. I don't really want to spend too much time on this. I don't think there's any argument that Josh Allen is the QB1 for 2024, unless you have something different there, Dad, but he should be QB1.
Well, I just have. I'm not going to argue that point, but you just look at his stats through the years, and Buffalo, they changed offensive coordinators, and things kind of changed. They were handing the ball off to James Cook more, but what I see on Josh Allen is 2023 he scored 15 rushing touchdowns. Yep. So the rest of from 2018 to 2022, he didn't have double-digit rushing touchdowns. So last year he had 15. His passing numbers still look the same, 4,300 yards, 29 touchdowns. Those are kind of normal. So
yeah, people do talk about that coordinator change and how Stephon Diggs. People are worried about Stephon Diggs not being there, and you look at the first 10 weeks of the season when Diggs was good and the offensive coordinator was the other guy, I forget his name. He was QB1. When the new offensive coordinator took over, and Joe Brady, from that point on, he was QB1. So it didn't really matter.
Yeah,
he was throwing less. There was a game he had 15 pass attempts, 7 completions, 94 yards and 1 touchdown, but he was still good because he had a touchdown rushing and 24 yards on the ground. So he's awesome. He's fun to watch. He's going to be a top 3 QB. I don't really see that happening unless him falling out of that unless he gets hurt. So they're not going to run him less. They were actually running him more when he, when Joe Brady took over. 9 attempts, 10 attempts, 8, 5, 11, 15. Again, he's going to be awesome. Again, but I generally don't take quarterbacks in the second round. So I'm not going to be, if he's going to go in the second round, which is where his ADP says he should be going, I'm not going to have him on my team, but I understand that he's awesome. So, James Cook is a little bit more interesting to talk about. 24, he'll be 25 this year. He's going 45th overall. This is half PPR ADP, by the way. Round 4. So he's going in round 4. He's RB14 overall. So he's no longer a discount as he was last year. You look at the numbers last year as I pull it up. You look at the raw numbers and things like that, and you see, James Cook was RB11 last year. That's great. Average was a little bit lower. He was RB19, as you can see, in 2023. I'll let you start here, Dad. Are you in or out on James Cook as a round 4 pick, potentially as your RB1 or RB2?
Coming out of Georgia, he was not a bell cow. He was the second running back at the University of Georgia. So his first rookie year, it seems like he was kind of played like that, and he didn't have, great numbers. Last year, everything changed, man. So He had 237 carries, over 1,100 yards, and he only had a couple of touchdowns though. So, are we going to get that out of him this year? Yeah, they're probably going to try, and it could succeed. The backups behind him aren't real household names or anything like that, but we know running backs can come out of the woodwork and do stuff. So, yeah, fourth round. I know a lot of people are going to grab him. They think,
Mm-hmm.
I get a little hesitant sometimes. Caught 44 passes, which wasn't great or anything, but I know late in the year he was running the ball a lot.
Yeah. He had here's his game log from when Joe Brady took over. 17 carries, 16, 10, 25, 20, 16, 13. And then in the 2 playoff games they played, he had 18 attempts in both of those. So yeah, he was definitely running it more. That's for sure. Still not getting the touchdowns. He had 1 touchdown in that stretch, which is frustrating. A lot of it's because of Josh Allen, right? So
15 touchdowns, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, if James Cook is going to have a big touchdown year, he's going to have to be very efficient and be scoring touchdowns from the 10 and 15-yard line. He's not going to be getting them 5 yards or closer. It's either going to be Josh Allen or one of these other running backs that they're going to bring in. I think the most rushing touchdowns a Bills running back has had under this kind of iteration of the Bills with Josh Allen and McDermott is 7 by Singletary. So for that reason, you're going to get kind of a boom bust player, right? Now, he was better when Joe Brady took over. I told you he was RB 19 per game last year. He was RB 11 per game from when Joe Brady took over, and he averaged 15 points per game, half PPR, which is really good. But you just look at the game log, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd say 7 games last year where you were very disappointed with his production, under 8 points in half PPR. That's when anything 8 or higher. Okay, I'm not disappointed, but if you start getting below 8, especially from your RB1 potentially RB2 even, that's where I get a little bit upset, right? And it's just going to happen with James Cook because the touchdowns aren't there, and that's why he's not the pass catcher I think we expected for him coming out of college. He's good, but he's not 60 plus, right? Which is I think what we kind of expected from him coming out of college, and playing all last year it was 44. So I don't know. I'm kind of where you are. I think where it's just kind of like, all right, I don't hate it. If I'm taking him in the late 4th round, I don't love it either. I'm not like, holy crap, I got James Cook. I feel like I'm kind of taking him at like his ceiling a little bit, or like at his value as a top 15 running back. And I generally, we want to find bargains, right? But we can't always find those. So, but you mentioned it. I mean, the depth chart, not much. I mean, you have Ray Davis, who, we kind of liked coming out of college, but he's an older player. He's a rookie. Who else is there? Ty Johnson, who they, for whatever reason, started to get him involved last year. They always seem to want to get another running back involved, whether it's Zach Moss with Devin Singletary or Latavius Murray or Damian Harris. It seems like they want that thumper at the goal line, and that might be Ray Davis, so that even takes away more touchdown. I just don't think they're going to use Cook that much in the red zone. He has to score from 10, 15 yards out to get touchdowns. So any last thoughts there? So we're both kind of like, all right, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
We're not writing home about it. Now the wide receivers is going to take some time to talk through because it's kind of a shit show. The ADPs are representing that. They're all within basically a round to a round and a half of each other. That's Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and Khalil Shakir. And they're all kind of without knowing who the true number one is, they are still significant picks. Round 9 picks are still potentially starting players on your team, right? So Keon Coleman is the earliest being drafted. Obviously, he's a rookie. They took in the second round. 98th overall is his ADP. That's a round 9 pick. That's wide receiver 45. Man, I think people are expecting him to be like, Diggs, right? Not necessarily Diggs, but
right
70%
out of the gate,
of what,
huh?
well, 70% of what Diggs was, right? And I just don't really think it's gonna. I wasn't very high on Keon Coleman to begin with. All the experts are saying he should be a slot player, but they're gonna play him on the outside because Curtis Samuel's a slot player. Khalil Shakir is a slot player. Dalton Kincaid's a slot player. They have a bunch of slot receivers.
So is he going to be Puka Nakua or is he going to be Quentin Johnson?
Maybe in the middle. Maybe he'll be like, not quite what we got from like Flowers.
It might be hard to tell this, our audience, if you're a dynasty guy, he should be on your team. Definitely, sure. If you're a redraft, I don't know if I'm taking this guy, but we all know, we say this, I think we've said it a bunch of times. We know the second half of the year, it seems like, and you can't honestly, if you're in a redraft league, you can't have a guy on your roster, he'll show up in October or November or something like that. And, but that can honestly happen in this case. So,
yeah, I guess the fact that he is going round 9 makes it a little bit easier, just because generally round 9 is, if you don't play in a deeper league, it is kind of filling out your bench. And I guess I'm okay with him as like a bench player, potentially the wide receiver 1. But I mean, like he's going around guys like Ladd McConkey. Would you take Ladd McConkey or Keon Coleman?
I might take McConkey, but I have some reservations on him too. So
I'm taking McConkey for sure.
Yeah.
JSN or Keon Coleman?
Probably JSN.
Yeah, I think there's more potential there.
Yeah.
Okay, now you look at, those are the 2 receivers ahead of him. Now you start looking at the guys behind him. Portland Sutton, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas. All right, if you want to take Keon Coleman over those guys, sure. Go for it, So I guess I don't hate it too much. Those are just wide receivers, though. Let's see some running backs, roughly where he's going. So 98th overall. So we're talking about guys like Raheem Mostert, Austin Eckler, Devin Singletary. I'm taking all those guys over Keon Coleman.
Probably, yes.
Like especially Mostert. Singletary's going to be at least a starting running back for 4 or 5 weeks.
I think Singletary's going to, his bad years are 800 yards, so.
Yeah.
And he may be on a shitty team, but anyway, go ahead.
No, it's just, honestly, and then if we're talking about these other receivers, Curtis Samuel's the next one, 27.9 years old, 114th overall, round 10. So he's essentially going 16 picks later than Keon Coleman. I'll take Curtis Samuel over Keon Coleman. I know that may sound crazy, but he's more versatile. So if we're talking about potentially they're going to be spreading the ball around a lot, and maybe that's how the offense is just going to be, and no one's really that good for fantasy, Curtis Samuel is going to be the one to have the best opportunity to be that, because he's versatile. He can play anywhere. He gets carries. I don't think people realize how many carries. It's enough to make a difference. He's had 41 carries back in 2020, 38 carries back in 2022. By the way, 2020 on the Carolina Panthers, guess who his offensive coordinator was? It was Joe Brady.
Joe Brady.
So,
yeah.
Are they going to use him that way potentially? And that's significant. If you're getting 20, 30 carries in a season and you're adding on 200 yards or so, which is what he's had a couple times, well, your 800-yard receiver just turned into a 1,000-yard total play, right? A 1,000-yard receiver. So I kind of like Curtis Samuel the most out of this group of three that we're going to be talking about. But he's also a risk. He could just be kind of mediocre, like he kind of has been throughout his whole career. So you see the numbers from the last 2 years, 8.5 and 7.9. He's not even a flex player at that point. So how you feeling about Curtis Samuel? Any interest in him at all? Or
Yeah, I do, based upon, the things that you said, and I've always had that. The problem, I known what kind of player he is. There was a couple of years ago he was on the Washington football team, and he had like a hamstring problem for like half the year. So, but you're gonna need, as a starter on my fantasy team, I'm probably not too happy. If I got to play this guy 2 or 3 weeks, Curtis Samuel, yeah, I think I could do that.
Yeah, that's kind of where he's being drafted, as more of a bench flex kind of guy and stuff like that. Khalil Shakir is the third one. He's going also in round 10, 120th overall. So he's going 6 picks after Curtis Samuel and about 22 picks after Keon Coleman. He's getting a little bit of a hype, but as wide receiver 53, I don't know. Like the problem I have with it is we didn't really see much last year from Khalil Shakir. Like we saw a little bit, and he was okay at times, but the opportunity for him was kind of there last year, and he didn't really take it. First of all, he started the season off not really playing that much. Like I forget who they were using. I'm trying to remember now who Buffalo was using. I'm gonna see if I can kind of quickly find that out. As a receiver instead of him, maybe. Oh, I think it was Deontay Hardy. I think they were putting Deontay Hardy in the slot.
Jeez.
Yeah. If I remember, no, it wasn't even him. I don't know who it was exactly, but he was kind of splitting time with a couple players. So it's like if you're good, you're just going to take that role. So that's my only concern. Yeah, there is some opportunity there, and it is intriguing. Like usually, if we have these ambiguous wide receiver rooms, we don't really know who the wide receiver one is. A lot of times, I just like to take the last one because they have like an equal chance as the other guys, but this might not be the case with these guys because they're all just going very similar, within 20 picks of each other, essentially. So what the fantasy community is telling you is we don't know who the wide receiver one is, but they're on a really good team, so we want a piece of one of these guys, right? That's basically what they're telling you. Any interest in Khalil Shakir at all, or is he kind of third?
Not for me. I'm not.
Yeah.
Like you said, you said an important thing. He hadn't seen enough.
Yeah. He had the opportunity, right? So
yeah, and he could be lights out, but he's not for me right now.
Yeah, and again, this just could be a case of like Curtis Samuel is going to fit a role for this team that's going to be very valuable for the Buffalo Bills, and that could turn into fantasy production. The Bills want to make Keon Coleman work. They're going to force him the ball, I think. At least they're going to try and make him work. Khalil Shakir could be the one where they're just kind of like, all right, you have your role as a big slot player, but, that's about it. So, and again, the other problem is all these guys, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Dalton Kincaid, they all kind of profile as slot players. So just quickly, none of these guys are fantasy relevant. Guess who else is on this team that could just muddy the waters? Marcus Valdes-Scantling, MVS.
Oh my God.
Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins. But I know we roll our eyes at it, but if those guys can play on the outside and Shakir and Samuel or Keon Coleman can't, they're going to be on the field because they're going to fill a role. You need outside receivers who can stretch the field, win on the outside, who can block in the run game. And if those other players that we talked about, the first three, can't do one of those roles, they're going to lose playing time. I'm not saying these guys are going to be fantasy relevant, but they could just make things frustrating for one of the other Buffalo receivers that you took. So just kind of keep that in mind. But maybe Dalton Kincaid's the answer. 24.7 years old, 50th overall. He's going round 5, tight end 5. He averaged 7.1 points last year. He was much better when Dawson Knox wasn't there, but Dawson Knox is back, by the way. Just keep that in mind. I've been talking about this bucket of tight ends where there's 4 clear-cut: Laporta, Kelsey, McBride, and Andrews. And then there's 2 more that you can maybe throw into this bucket, and in my opinion, is Kincaid and Pitts. And those are kind of the top 6. To me, any one of those 6 tight ends could be tight end 1. So it makes Dalton Kincaid intriguing in the fact that you don't have to spend a 2nd or 3rd round pick on him like you do with Laporta or Kelsey. You can spend a 5th round pick. So, Dad, is this the player you're in on for the Bills?
Yes. So, Josh Allen's going to throw the ball to somebody. He's going to have a favorite target. And I think here we are. When is the biggest jump in players, between year 1 and year 2? So there's a lot of checks in the boxes here regarding Dalton Kincaid for me. So I wouldn't have a problem, taking Dalton Kincaid right where he's supposed to be.
Yeah. There's there's 200. I think it's like 220 or 30 targets gone between Diggs and Gabe Davis. So there's a lot of targets to make up, right? And again, that could be Kincaid. You're right. My only concern is not many offenses center their offense, or not many teams center their offense around a tight end, right? Because there's not many tight ends that can be the centerpiece of an offense. It's kind of the Chiefs and the Ravens, and that's kind of it, that we've seen consistently over the last several years, right? And that worries me a little bit. Is Kincaid really ready? Can he be that? And I think that's what we're kind of expecting from him a little bit. But again, without Dawson Knox last year, when we saw him as the guy, he was tight end 4 over that 5-week stretch. So now Diggs is gone, a big target getter. Gabe Davis is gone. Could be Dawson Knox for sure. I can't argue it. Yeah, I can't argue it. So out of all these players, Josh Allen, James Cook, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, who are you in on the most given ADP as well? Where you have to take them? Is it still Kincaid?
Yeah, Kincaid. He's at the top of my totem pole, I think.
Yeah. What sucks is I love the Bills. They're fun to watch. They're one of the better teams. They're going to be a good offense. They're going to be a good team. I don't think I'm going to have many Bills on my fantasy team because I'm not going to take Josh Allen in round 2. I'm a little skittish on James Cook. Maybe I'll end up with him on a team or 2. The receivers, I don't know what to do with. Maybe I'll have a Curtis Samuel, and then Kincaid. Again, I just generally don't take tight ends that high, but we'll see. But there might be a situation where I don't roster them that much.
Yeah, overall, the whole team is this is a transition year, related to salary cap, and they got rid of a lot of defensive players. And we see it in the receiving core, they had to get rid of Diggs. It's like the Chargers had to get rid of Mike Williams and Keenan Allen to make their salary cap work. So Diggs he's same thing with the Bills, and they had their, they always talk about windows, is it 2 to 4 years of a window? Unfortunately, Buffalo had their window. Now they've kind of got rid of some players. They're making a little bit of a transition. They still got the main guy. They got a good running back. They got a good tight end. They got a good quarterback. After that, it's a big flip of the coin.
Yeah. Yep. So it'll be interesting to see how the team. I still think Josh Allen's going to be QB1 even without Diggs, and could be better just spreading the ball around. So
I agree with you. I don't know how anybody could argue that, but
yeah. But we will be back, and we're going to be talking about the Carolina Panthers in the next video. So that will be out tomorrow in your world. So we'll see how we feel about them, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.